Hello and welcome to Oneness Conversations with the Bearded Mystic. And today our guest is Sunny Sharma, who is a great YouTuber. If you've not checked his channel out, it will be in the video description and show notes. He is someone that talks about non-duality in a very simple and yet deep way, and we're going to understand a lot more about non-duality. So welcome to the show, Sunny. Nice to see you.
Glad I have a little bit of a beard today.
Good. You are you've joined the Bearded Mystic group.
Not as glorious as yours.
Oh, thank you. I'll take the compliment. So yeah, obviously, I actually admire you as a content creator. You have a course and as well as an academy and a YouTube channel. I don't know if you have anything else, but how do you come up with your ideas every day for the YouTube channel? And how do you maintain that interest in the channel without getting bogged down with the grind, so to speak?
Yeah. I think, when we do something that we're truly passionate about, and like with the work that I do, honestly, it really feels like if I was doing anything else, it would be a waste of my life.
Mm,
So in that way, I feel like that passion is what generates all that creativity. I
mm,
remember when I was just starting my channel, I really did feel that I used to think that how much can I possibly talk about something like, or like these spiritual matters? But I feel that when we commit to something, like the creativity follows. And
mhm,
so whenever whenever an idea for a talk or anything like that comes to mind, that is usually what I share. Yeah,
yeah.
I let it be natural. It's like I try to like I used to before plan a lot more,
Uh-huh.
but I think as I've um, become more experienced with the whole video creation thing, but and also as I've grown in my own spiritual practice, I just I'll maybe have like a vague theme or something, and
Mhm.
then I'll let it be spontaneous from there. Yeah.
Nice. So before, did you you used to have it like kind of scripted and kind of, or like
Yeah. In the
did you
very
plan?
beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
In the very beginning, I think the first couple of videos that I ever made, they were literally like, I used to write every single word down
Yeah.
and I used to read it off of the
Wow.
script, little by little. And
Wow. Wow.
I think that's how everybody has to start eventually, until you do start getting comfortable
Hmm.
with speaking to a camera or comfortable with
Yes.
just expressing your ideas, like even when you're alone in your room. Yeah.
Yes. That's interesting. And I did watch a video that was about your story, and I thought that was rather interesting. So tell me that journey of like going away from, and I think everyone has a similar story. Like I felt I could relate to you because I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was really into that self-help stuff. And then when it came to non-duality, that kind of like slipped away, like as if I wasn't interested anymore in that. And whenever I heard it, I used to maybe like cringe a little. But how did you find that journey? And like what was the trigger moment where you're like, I'm not looking back at this. The path that I found now is what I need right now. I mean, the future is something we can't anticipate, but right now, could you go into that a bit more,
Like the
please?
turning point from self-help
Yeah,
into self-inquiry.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for everybody, I think these teachings, even if it is just the very beginning self-help teachings, like they're supposed to help you grow and then outgrow those teachings. Like every
Mm-hmm,
teaching's role is to, at first, when it comes into your experience, it's like out of your reach, right? And it's like not
mm-hmm,
fully understood, and we have to grasp at it, meaning like
mm-hmm.
we have to grow into it. And
Yes.
if it does its job, then it helps us outgrow it. And
Mm,
then naturally, the next teaching, which is sort of like of a higher frequency or a higher paradigm, call it,
mm-hmm.
then that makes its way into our experience. So that was the way with me, like when the self help teaching came into my experience, it was very necessary for me because
Right.
at that time I was very, sort of like a very weak ego, that's what
Mm-hmm,
the way I like to explain it. Very insecure, very fearful, constantly afraid of the future,
mm-hmm,
and I really wanted to change my life. And so,
mm-hmm.
of course, at that point, if like self inquiry came into my experience, I wouldn't even be receptive to it because my focus was I want to change my life.
Right.
I want to change myself, my body, my this, my that.
Yes.
So the self help teaching made its way into my life, and I explored it for many years. And when I started my YouTube channel, that's really what I used to talk about more, just like manifestation and self-help, beginner spirituality.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I started to go down that path and started to change my experience and started to experience things that I wanted, and even started to change my own beliefs about myself, and
Hmm.
went from like a weak, insecure person to a more, I would say, like a powerful and confident person. So I went through that transition, and I think that for most of us, we do have to go through that, where we go from like the weak ego to a strong ego. But then there comes a time, if we're lucky, that we start to realize that no matter how much I change myself and work on myself, no matter how much I change my surroundings, I still don't feel fulfilled.
Mm.
So that was the turning point, when it came to, like, when I came to self inquiry, I was going through that phase where I was seeing that no matter what I do, no matter what experience I have, no matter how much I change myself and grow into the person I wanted to be before,
Hmm.
I'm still always restless,
Hmm.
still always insecure to whatever degree, even though now it's masked in an outer confidence. Inwardly,
Yeah.
I'm still insecure and fearful,
Uh-huh.
always worried about, like, oh, all the things I have achieved may be taken away.
Mm.
What does the future hold? So I was just like noticing then, hey man, like, what does the mind want then? Because the mind says it wants all these things and it wants to become this and that. But then when it becomes those things, it just wants something else, and it still never feels good. And then I also started to notice in my peer group, and also people that I looked up to in business and just, in popular culture, nobody's ever satisfied. So
Mm.
that really got me interested in, like, what is this then. Luckily enough, that's when I had, a few months back, I had signed up for, a few months back, before I was going through this phase, I had signed up for a 4-day meditation retreat.
Mhm.
And, like, so this meditation retreat was just about to come. It was like the next weekend. And for some reason, I got drawn to the book Who Am I
Yes.
on Amazon. I don't even know how I found it, honestly, but I just saw it on Amazon and I ordered that and I Am That together. And I didn't touch I Am That for a few months, but like the book Who Am I took it with me to that meditation retreat, and I read it. That was the big turning point for me, because for the first time when I read that book, the words of Ramana Maharshi, for the first time, they turned me away from focusing on experience to that which focuses. Right? They turned me to inward, to myself. And so when I read the teaching in that book, that's what made me really curious about, okay, what am I? I started to, because in that book he shared, like, you are not the mind, you are not the body, you are not what you take yourself to be. And so, like, that lit me up on fire. And from that point onwards, my focus was no longer just about what I can change in my experience and even who I can become personally, because I started to see that, like, that is always a changeful experience. I started to grow interested in what is that which does not change. And
Mhm.
that was like a spark that, has been lit ever since. So, yeah.
Wow, wow. Because it's quite a dramatic shift from, like,
Mhm.
say, manifestation and law of attraction and all this stuff to Ramana Maharishi. I mean, they're at the opposite side of the spectrum, really,
Yeah, yeah.
where Ramana's really about that silent, which I grasp a lot from your talks, by the way. Like, there is this silence that's there in the background, even though you're speaking, and yes, but you can sense it. And I think that's the beauty of Ramana. And I think, so did you feel like even though obviously you read his book, but did you feel that the energy of Ramana was working in the background as you were reading?
Yeah.
And
I mean, and we can say that that also may be like a mental, like a mind thing, but like
Mhm,
either way, yeah, it totally feels that way. It felt like I felt very, very connected to him, and I felt like his love, his embrace, his power.
mhm,
Like, the words are one thing, but like the power in the words, that felt very, very real. That's why I was very drawn. And then, you know, because I felt such great power and love in his words, I never doubted. Like, for me, I was more naive, and, like, this is a obstacle sometimes with very
mhm,
intelligent people. When they come across this teaching, they have a hard time with it because they need to, like, figure it out practically, and they doubt too much.
Mm.
I had my fair share of doubts, but like what I really found beneficial in my journey is that because of that love and power that I felt in his words, I trusted his words more than I trusted my own doubts.
Wow.
Because also by that point, I had started to understand, even with the other spiritual teachings and self help teachings, that like even those things don't make sense at first. And I had gotten a fair share of
Mm.
experience that like you have to practice the teaching even though you may not understand it. You have to do your best to practice it, and then the understanding makes its way into your experience. Like, so that's the same attitude that I kept with these words. But for sure, as you say, like I totally felt that connection, that love, that power.
Wow. It's amazing how. So currently I'm writing an episode on the history of Advaita Vedanta, and I actually wasn't too sure about using Ramana Maharishi because of
Mhm.
the Neo Advaita movement that's kind of somewhat kind of tarnished his name, or attempted to tarnish his name. I don't think it can tarnish it. But I had to mention him. Like, it was when it came down to it, I was like, well, he has had a significant impact, not only
Yeah,
in the West, but even in India. There's so many disciples I've come across, and they can attest to his greatness. And I think for someone that was largely rather silent to have such an impact is beautiful. And
yeah.
again, when you look at his picture, I mean, there's a certain majesty to it that even kings and emperors cannot emulate, I feel.
Yeah.
Um,
He said the silence was the essence of his teaching, but you know, he spent his entire life in service,
yes.
even to those who could not understand his silence. So for them, is he would give a lot of words too. You know, of course, he
Yeah.
was more conservative with his words, very
Yeah.
offering very few. But he, you know, if you read his teachings, there's plenty of conversations and you know. Plenty of scripts where people have written down his dialogues with members
Yeah.
uh, in his ashram who maybe didn't understand the teaching to just be quiet.
Mm.
But like again, what I really resonated from his instructions to those people is that like even the words he offers, he's usually not interested in just talking about concepts, like talking about the truth. He's just interested in pointing the disciple inwards. So that always resonated with me deeply. And also that inspired me in also the way that I share the teaching is like on my channel and in all the work that I do, like I do my best to, I'm not so interested in the philosophy side of things. I'm
Mhm.
interested in turning people inward, helping people turn away from what they see to the very fact of seeing, because I
Mm.
think that's the essence of practice, and like that brings wisdom on its own. So yeah.
That's very interesting. So let me probe into that a bit more. When you talk about the seeing, how do you get someone who is totally kind of absorbed in their own mind? You know, the incessant chatter is there. How do you get them to see inward and get to that place of presence? I mean, do you find that it takes, obviously, there's a process, it may take them a bit longer, but how do you guide them to do that?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people will surprise you. You know, sometimes you may think that, oh, this person wouldn't get it, but like, it just depends on your time. You know, when it's your time and that interest
Mm,
is there, the teaching finds you, because you don't find the teaching finds you. And it's like
beautiful.
if it's your time, then you know you will go. It's all grace in that way. But so yeah, how do we get someone to turn inward? Well, firstly, the interest has to be there from their
Mm,
own side. If they're not interested and they're not genuinely curious, then no matter what, like you say, it's not going to help, you know. But like if the interest is there and the curiosity is there, if the person has like never ever practiced meditation,
mhm.
it's rare that this teaching will find them at that time, you know, because we find that which is usually like to ease us into these teachings.
Yes.
It's a seamless way that these teachings find themselves to us. I mean, they come to us. We find that which is appropriate for us. So it's, I mean, for me, I had to do a decent bit of meditation before I came to self-inquiry. But
Mhm.
so firstly, like if a person has never done any meditation, I think it's very appropriate first to just begin a simple meditation, which is like awareness of body sensation,
Hmm.
where in the beginning, because our attention is so scattered and spilling into concepts
Hmm.
incessantly, we have to harness that attention. We have to harness it and so gather it away from going into thoughts to just one object. That could
Hmm.
be the breath, that could be the body sensation. Because through this practice, we learn to discern between attention and thinking. Previously, they're one and the same. We don't know the difference between the two. They're just like mixed. When we start to now take our attention away from thinking and just bring it to maybe breath or body sensation, we learn the art of just watching, not thinking and describing, but just watching. We start to become open and we start to notice that presence, which is simply there. So I think that in the beginning, for a person who's never practiced meditation, is more appropriate than something like self inquiry, which will seem very subtle at the time. Once someone starts to get more used to and more familiar with this style of meditation, which is focus on an object, right? When you're focusing, you're not thinking. When you are um, simply anchored, your attention is anchored in sensation or breath, there's no thought. From there, it becomes possible. Now it's like instead of focusing on body sensation, so instead of watching body sensation, you become aware of the watching itself. So instead of being aware of sensation, you become aware of awareness itself. So this is a little subtle, right? Because there's no object to hook your attention into. The attention itself becomes the object, the anchor.
Right, right.
So this is what we can call turning inward. You know, first we go in a simple way. We at least turn away from concepts and we turn away from sense perceptions to, let's say, breath or body sensation. We learn to just watch. This is one step of going inward. And then next, we turn away from even body sensation, from any object we can know, and we become aware of the knowing itself. So it's like the subject being aware of itself. Rather than always being aware of this or that, we notice awareness itself. That is like what we refer to as the noticing I am.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's very beautiful. I mean, there's many ways. I totally agree with the process and the way you've described it. And people call it many things, like Rupert Spira, and I think Francis Lucille. They call it being aware of awareness, or being aware of being aware.
Mhm.
Um, I tend to call it formless awareness because there's no form for you
Mhm.
to attach to. J. Krishnamurti used to say, "When the observer becomes the observed." I mean, that was one of the first times I had the breakthrough of
Yeah.
actually, oh yeah, I'm there's some the subject is, I'm observing my own self, and not the self like Rahul, but what I cannot
Yes.
name or label. It was astonishing. And yeah, so when you read, and I actually, I wanted to see if you agree with this now. Do you ever go back to reading spiritual texts, and do you see, but do you read it from awareness rather than like Sunny or me reading it from Rahul? Do you read it from the awareness point of view, and do you find that it opens, say, avenues which you never discovered before? Or because Sunny's still going to be kind of there in the background observing that, but yeah, have you ever done that? And if so, you can express whatever you like on that.
Yeah. And I mean, perhaps we were like talking about the same experience in different ways, but the way that sometimes I like to see it as is, of course, the act of reading is always personal, right? Like
Mhm.
only you can only read as a person, but the entire experience that is currently appearing of a person reading something and thinking about it, that entire experience is appearing in your seeing.
Mhm.
That experience comes and goes,
Mhm.
you know? So like none of those contents we can call me. I
Mm.
am that in which it all comes and goes. I am that which sees the appearance and disappearance of that experience. So I would say, like, and probably it's the same thing that you were describing by saying that, but yeah, like I say, I see it in that way sometimes, and I feel that the way that I read things now, the only way it has changed as opposed to how I used to read, is that now I'm not reading with an expectation that the next thing I read will do something for me, or like that'll be the one big bang or something like that. I'm Now I no longer read with expectation or desire for something. It's just because I'm genuinely interested and I enjoy it, and I find that allows you to be very receptive and open to just the power of those words. So
Mm.
I love reading text. I know you do videos on the Bhagavad Gita. Like, that's one of my favorite texts, and I constantly resort it for guidance on just how to live on a day-to-day basis. Things like Astavakar Gita, teachings of Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj. I love reading those texts, but now in a different way. And I feel like when you're just reading them out of pure interest and joy, the words, they have a greater power, and you have a greater receptivity to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think we're talking about the same thing, really. And that's very interesting. I wanted to ask you, we've mentioned a few teachers already. Can you explain the importance of the guru? And I'm not going to ask if you see yourself as a guru, but we definitely seek help from each and every person. I think everyone is your guru
Yeah.
in a realistic manner. But in terms of the spiritual guidance, how important is the guru in that process?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know you didn't ask the question, but I definitely do not see myself as a guru. I always tell people, like, look at me as like your spiritual friend
Yeah,
on the path,
yeah,
and just if you can gain some benefit from the guidance I share, then wonderful. I really like to be looked at in that regard, because I don't like to be looked at as that, because it comes with expectations
yeah,
itself.
yeah.
I just say, hey, be free of that. Just enjoy the teachings if they are valuing you. But yeah, I think the importance of the guru is very great. Um, the greatest guru being the inner guru.
Mm,
And I love the teaching by Nisargadatta Maharaj. He says the inner guru is the only guru, but he takes form outside as many things. Maybe a formal teacher that you see in person, maybe another teacher's books that you read only and you never met them and they're maybe passed away a long time ago. Or it may be your relatives or your spouse, or like, so he says the inner guru takes shape and form as all of these things. And in that way, you are right when you say we are all in a way a guru to everybody. Or it's better to say that everybody that I come across is a guru. Every experience and challenge that I come across is my guru.
mm,
And so once we start to really understand this and accept this, then we can truly, like, rather than constantly resisting experience, resisting like challenges, fighting against people, we can start to use all of that for our spiritual growth. That's like when we start to become receptive to the inner guru,
mm,
you know. Um, and outside in life, we always live in this way, always seeing every experience that comes to us as a teacher. And inward, in meditation, we are like sort of connecting with or becoming one with the inner guru. And I think as we start to live in this way, then we are the most open. We're the most vulnerable to this understanding. Then it seeks us rather than us constantly seeking it and trying to make the next spiritual realization happen.
right.
Yeah, that's a way of seeing things that's really helped me, and I really find it is very truthful.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, I mean, I know there's a lot of negativity about, well, I was talking to Gary, I know he interviewed you. We had a
Yeah,
conversation, and I talked about how there's probably more genuine gurus than there are fakes, but the fakes always get the attention.
yeah,
And it's such a shame. And there's only a few bad apples. Um, but again, like, but I think now we live in a world where the access is incredible. Like, you can go
mhm,
on YouTube, you can listen to anyone, and you can, hopefully apply those messages. But there's this word they use in Hindi. I don't know if it's a Sanskrit word, but they say it's ganras. Like you're just listening, just for the sake of listening. Like you're not going to improve your life, but it's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to listen because you know, I'm being spiritual if I do. I think the guru is really, as you mentioned, like kind of transformative. That transformation happens when I think you internalize it. Yes, it's important to praise an external guru and have an external guru, but until we internalize it, then the teachings don't really settle. I think if you,
Mhm.
for example, if someone just saw Ramana Maharshi's picture and just worshipped that, but didn't see his teachings or his energy within, I don't know if it actually can change you, because
Yes.
I think that's where grace comes in, right? And could you go into grace a little? Now people hardly talk about it because I guess everyone's more intellectually minded, but I do feel grace is really important in the spiritual journey. Could
Yeah.
you go into that?
Yeah, sure. Um, I always ask people to just see that when they feel grace is missing, or I want to get grace or achieve it. It's just good to even wonder, and notice that like you didn't do anything to bring these teachings into your life. All these
Mhm,
teachings which have enriched your experience, that have made you wise, that have helped you in the toughest of times, we didn't do anything to find them.
mhm,
They came to us. And I always say this, like that same power that brought the teachings into our life is the same power that's clarifying, purifying,
mhm,
quote unquote, bringing us deeper. You know, I don't think we can create grace, obviously. We can only open ourselves to it by not clinging to the familiar,
mhm,
by not clinging to our perception, like our way of perceiving things, our belief systems,
mhm,
by constantly projecting future and a past. That is the way um, that's like impure perception. That is where grace gets filtered through too many things, and now it appears to not be here. It appears to be missing.
wow.
But as we start to become more and more empty, more and more silent, more and more aware, we find grace to be that which moves everything. So I always say that like everything truly is the movement of grace. Everything is grace in action. Even the teaching coming into your life, the curiosity to pursue it, the desire to practice it, and the results that may or may not come from it. It's all grace. And I look at the spiritual path as like what is meant for you is happening in each moment. Simply be like that empty, open vessel through which all this experience is flowing through. It's just coming and going. Be open and empty, accept everything, reject nothing, resist nothing. Live in that manner. And then we find we become more receptive to grace. We become more available to notice it's working, and we feel the peace of it.
Mm,
So, and the more that the more that I mature in this understanding, the more I see the need to submit to this grace, rather than my own opinions about what is right or what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, what I need and what I don't, or even the idea that I can make spiritual progress or realization happen. I think we come to a point in our meditation practices like we notice our powerlessness to make anything happen, to grow spiritually. And then from that arises devotion. From that arises like a total surrender. That is a beautiful place, because then that's when like the whole belief in doership is softening, and then grace is even more available. Yeah.
yeah, wow, that was amazing. That took me on the journey, man. It really spoke to me, actually, what you
Mhm.
said. And I think,
Okay.
yeah, grace is something you have to just be receptive towards. When it does grasp you, it's not going to let go. And you just,
Yeah,
as long as you kind of merge with it. But again, life can bring those obstacles where we don't.
that
So,
itself is grace too. Like when we even appear to have fallen off the path, we go through that whole journey, and maybe we let's say we fall off for many months and we go into a state of deep suffering, but through that we come to some sort of learning or discovery, and then we come onto the path more stronger than ever before. So like going through that entire experience of falling off the path, like that was only in appearance,
Wow.
you know. If anything, that is equally as part of the path as you being on the path. So as you're totally right. Once it finds you, it cannot leave you. Once you're on the path, you cannot escape. As Ramana Maharshi always says, like your head is already in the tiger's jaws. Just don't resist. There's no way you escape it, but just stop resisting. Just let it, finish
Yeah.
the job.
That's a good analogy, and a very
Yeah,
interesting one. Um,
yeah.
yeah, he came up with some interesting. I think him, like Sri Ramakrishna as well. They had some interesting ways of expressing that non-dual
Mhm.
truth very beautifully. I mean, it all starts with obviously the Upanishads and so forth, but yeah, they had interesting ways of modernizing those
Yeah.
examples. So we've kind of maybe touched upon it, but I do feel that there are pitfalls that can occur when a seeker goes through the process of self inquiry. Could you go into what those pitfalls could be, and how can someone try to, I wouldn't say bypass them, but to address them properly and therefore defeat them in an effective
Mhm.
manner rather than bypassing and then them creeping up later on?
I think one of the greatest pitfalls is chasing an experience through self-inquiry. So it's like
Yeah.
that so notice how it's a self-inquiry, right? It's a inquiry into the self, trying to see what am I. You're trying it's In simple terms, it's awareness of the subject,
Mm,
right? This meditation is awareness of the subject, but we keep trying to find the subject as an object. We
right.
keep thinking that the subject will eventually reveal itself as maybe a blissful feeling
Mhm,
or a vision of something. But so that keeps us stuck because it keeps us waiting for something like a somebody or something. But anything that can be waited for, anything that can come into existence, will also go out of existence and is not that which is aware of its coming and going.
mm,
So that I'd say that is one of the main pitfalls in self-inquiry, is an attachment to an experience, an expectation for what will happen next. Whereas the very essence of the practice of self-inquiry meditation is becoming free from even the notion next or before.
mm,
What is the silence that Ramana Maharshi is pointing to? He's pointing to that in which there's no concept of being a somebody with a next. There's
mm,
no concept of who I am, what life is. There's none of these ideas. There's no concept of the like what role you're playing. There's no concept of any form, no time, no space. It's just when all those things are emptied out, what remains,
mm,
right? Just for the sake of this conversation, we can say just being.
mm.
But we fall into again and again is we keep trying to make being into a form,
Into an object to keep seeking and
and then we keep looking outward. So that is a power that we have to overcome,
mhm,
and it only happens again and again by like no matter what object you come across in the practice, notice how even that is an experience that comes and goes. Simply be that which sees it. Once again, bring the awareness of the seer and just rest in that. And even through this practice, if you like have many amazing blissful feelings and whatnot, like don't get attached to that. I always share it with everybody. Don't get attached to even that. Even that is something that has come
mm,
and gone. All of these things are very seductive. They once again pull you outward and they make you attach your sense of self with them. Don't do it. It's like keep returning to the awareness of being, awareness of awareness, awareness of self. Yeah, I would say that's one of the main pitfalls.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. I think now, especially, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's been a lot of talk about the psychedelics and all this, and I wonder, and that's the same thing. They're seeking kind of an experience outer
Yes.
rather than, but they're trying to find themselves, but it's going to be objectified, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Maybe they can be a good gateway, but they can't be the answer. If
Yeah.
someone wants to say it's a gateway, have you had people that will like come up to you and be like, "Well, my ayahuasca experience was this," and do you feel that people can even deceive themselves into thinking they're experiencing the self, their true self, when they're doing these type of things?
I think so. I think we can create like we get hung up on ideas and experiences for sure. And so I don't know, my experience on psychedelics is very limited. I mean, my opinion is very limited because I've never tried it. I never truly felt drawn to it. And what I always share to those who ask about psychedelics is like, um, if you really, really are desiring to do it, then I mean, try it out. But
Mm.
don't think that is going to be any final answer. Don't think that you're going to like anything you even maybe realize or discover on psychedelics. You will have to ultimately integrate in your experience through spiritual practice. So that's the thing with psychedelics. It may open your mind up to that which is outside of your belief system, but it will never actually, you know, truly help you. Like it helps you in that way, maybe that it becomes a catalyst to you wanting to jump into spiritual practice. But other than that, I mean, again, my opinion is limited because I have limited knowledge on that. But I don't see how it could. So I work with some people who have done and experimented a lot with psychedelics, and then of course they still have to do the practice because
Yeah.
if anything, actually, psychedelics can also be harmful because they make you addicted to experience, to the
Yeah,
next spiritual experience,
yeah,
to the next like crazy experience.
yeah.
So
That's
that could be a pitfall.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, Ram Dass tends to be like the poster boy because of the whole
Mm.
LSD experience. But again, he had to let that go once he went to Neem Karoli Baba and he surrendered
Yes,
there, right? And actually,
I heard that as well.
he surrendered. I mean, that was the real thing that happened. That was larger than the LSD experiences. But
Yes.
yeah, I think people
Yeah, I'm
tend to.
pretty sure like his guru called him pretty silly for
Yeah,
wasting so much time with LSD.
I'm sure he
That was a
did.
journey, but I mean, like, I don't think it needs to be a part of your journey.
Yeah,
Certainly, like so. I feel like people who are new to this path, and again, it's all because we want to realize something and we want it fast. That's also, as you
yeah.
said earlier, right? The teachings are so available to us now. It's a blessing and a curse
Mm,
because when I read and hear about the old traditions, like if a disciple really wanted the teaching, especially a teaching as like direct as some of the ones in the Bhagavad Gita, or even the teachings of self-inquiry, the path of knowledge, like to even receive those teachings, you had to go through like long and arduous period of practice of like
yeah.
serving your teacher and everything for years. And because that, like in that time, it dissolved your mental pride. It
Mm,
helped you become more humble, more open, more available. It increased your devotion. And then you received such a powerful teaching, then you were able to practice. Now it's a blessing that we have all these different teachers and their teachings at our disposal. But like sometimes we're too immature to even receive it. And
yeah.
so we hear it and then we have no desire to really go deeper into it. So
Yeah,
it's like that. It's like the immaturity that we have to outgrow.
yeah. No, you're right. I do think at some point it does become a curse. Like, for example, someone read the Bhagavad Gita and then they'd be like, "Oh, maybe I should read the Ashtavakra Gita." But the two are starkly different, and you have to be on a different frequency, like to grasp. Like, I look at the Ashtavakra Gita, I'm like, man, it's a massive trap. It's getting people into a massive trap. When someone thinks they're ready for it, it can blow them away. Like into or what I mean by that is it can make them go deeper into the ego, because all it says, that, I think it's a fifth verse that says, if you think you're liberated, then you're liberated. Someone can just go with that and not doing this Agadatta Maharaj, but kind of go the opposite way and think, well, I am free, and forget all the work that has to go on. And I find that's missing today. When a lot of people aren't doing the necessary work, as you mentioned, that period of time when they spend time with the spiritual friend or the teacher, they're not doing that work. It is literally chasing.
I think what this path just requires is like self honesty. Like, so even let's say you read a text that is totally out of your grasp, because trust me, when I first read the Savikar Gita, I thought I was ready, but like it was largely out of my grasp. But I didn't make much of the things that I didn't understand. And when I read stuff like that, like if I didn't feel that way, then I didn't make much of it. And I was like, hey, maybe, I was totally open to it that like this is true. I felt that like, hey, these words are true. But what felt more right in my experience is like, okay, I need to practice this, I need to practice. So I just continued with that. So I think as long as we are self honest and we're not creating another belief about something, then we stay on the right track. That's why like also this practice of self inquiry really resonated with me, because it made me realize the power of concept, and it made me realize that like it's better to be free of all belief rather than try to create new beliefs. And I saw that much of spirituality was trying to do that. It was trying to create new beliefs rather than remove beliefs. So once I started to realize that itself is the pitfall, as you said earlier, like that even when I started to encounter these things that it didn't make sense, and it's like then I would have to believe that that is. I felt a certain truthfulness in it, but I didn't touch it, and I just continued with my practice, and I
Uh-huh.
continued, which was learning to become free of all belief. Meditation is ultimately learning to let go and become empty of believing or hanging on to any self identification, even the belief I'm a person or I'm so and so or the world is this way. Like in our meditation, we become empty of all those things. Like that is what felt so true and powerful to me. And I feel like that has kept me genuine, that has kept me honest. And then I
Nice.
love reading teachings like that. But it's like, then I also love just practicing what is totally resonant right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I love that, but I also love the Bhagavad Gita too. And it's like both have really benefited me. And
Yeah.
both at times have challenged me. They're like, oh, I don't get this.
Yeah. 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 I think Sri Krishna can be a bit of a trickster in many ways, but in a good way. In a good way. I really loved what you said about the honesty. I think that I actually put that as a number one quality a seeker should have is
Mhm.
honesty. For example, it's very easy to again get one experience, objectify it, and think one is like, oh yeah, I'm now free. I am now enlightened. I'm free of the ego. And but to be honest, when you have honesty as your number one kind of principle in spirituality, yeah, you cannot be fooled by your mind. As I'm not
Mhm.
saying you'd be totally kind of you'd be totally transcendent of it, but the mind can't break you down as easily as it would normally.
It won't delude you. Like you won't
Yeah.
fall into, and
Yes.
it won't allow you. You won't be allowed to allow it to lead you astray. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It can't. Yeah. It can't take you down a path you don't want to. You don't want to take. Or.
And
Uh,
sometimes, like when we're honest, then sometimes when even we do go down maybe what we may consider a wrong path, then
mm,
as long as we're honest, like our honesty always brings us back to the right track, to a more seamless, right, quote unquote, path. That's what I
yes.
found. And even like the detours somehow like were actually part of your journey. Like they help you also.
Yeah. Very beautiful because I think the same way. Like, for example, I still don't. Well, I've gone to the conclusion that the more I'm reading, the more I'm experiencing is the more I feel how vast the self is. Therefore, I cannot say I know it completely, or
Mhm.
I refuse to say I know it completely. When I spent, say, a few months away from spiritual practice, it actually was still there, maybe in the background. I just didn't, I wasn't actively doing anything.
Mhm.
So I do agree. Like, um, yeah, I guess that's grace. You know, it's working there, but you
Yeah.
just we tend to forget it. I wanted to actually. This is a good one because you're a householder. You have a wife, and congratulations on that. I mean,
Thank you.
I think I think anyone who has a spouse on the spiritual journey is it's a great way of practicing, in my opinion. The
Your
teaching.
greatest teacher for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So tell me, why didn't you go down the path of being a monk? Actually, because this path that you talk about, self inquiry, is mainly done by people that either are alone or appear alone, and or have become monks. And monks tend to say, become a sannyasi, and they go down that track. So why did you choose self inquiry even as a householder?
It's funny because a few years ago, before I proposed to my now wife, like I had that big inner battle because I did want to live a sort of a monk's life. I never felt like I wanted to go live in a monastery, but I did feel that, like, I don't know if I want to go down the family route. And I remember even having a conversation with my parents. I was sitting in their home, and we were just talking about that exactly. I was like, I'm not sure exactly what I want to do. To tell you the truth, like I only chose this because it just felt more natural. It just felt like this is where my life was headed, and it just felt that I had to try this.
Hmm.
It just I was more inclined towards this, and I always felt that like if it doesn't work out, then that's always available. But it's like I don't want to take the um, sannyasi route more as an avoidance of regular day to day life. I never wanted to run away from life. I wanted to face the challenge head on. Even though I really wanted to go maybe try out that life, it just maybe at that time didn't feel like the right option to choose at that time. So
Yeah.
who knows? Like, yeah, like I mean, right now, and I noticed like the my experience of the past few years in marriage, like it has been a big challenge, right? Like it teaches you so many things spiritually. It's harder than most of the things you do in your life, like uh, your
Yeah.
relationship, and it's beautiful in its own right. Like there's amazing moments, but there's also a lot of challenges, and I feel like those challenges require you to implement all of these teachings in order to go through them without suffering, in order to go through them in a harmonious way. I've learned so much on surrender,
Mm.
selfless service,
Yeah.
working without attachment. And so who says that the other path is better? Yeah, I really don't think so. I
Yeah.
just think it's whatever you're more inclined towards, and in that moment of that you have to make a decision, whatever feels most right to you, you just choose.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, and then you just stay open to whatever the future holds. So later on, if that life is meant for me, then we'll see at that time. But right now it seems like God has chosen this journey for me, and I'm doing my best to simply surrender in that way and continue doing my best to implement these teachings in that path.
Beautiful. I do say the same thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
being married, now having a kid has really kind of changed the way I see spirituality. And actually, it's I also think it's very and I would say I'm very fortunate. Again,
Yes.
this is what I consider grace. My wife is very, very kind of receptive to my journey, very supportive, and that helps. Like,
Yes.
if your other half isn't, it can become a place of conflict, right?
Yeah.
If you allow it to be. And I guess, and it also then challenges your spiritual maturity. And then when you have a kid, yeah, that's, I think, yeah, you learn selfless service with your wife, but selfless service with a kid, like my 5-month-old kid.
Oh, wow. It's very recent.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. Trust me, changing the diapers and getting up in the night, and just knowing that the other person is more important than your own self, that is seva, that is selfless service. And we I think there's a lot of power in the householder
Mhm.
life, and I
Yes,
personally always vouch for it. I'm not saying someone shouldn't be a monk or anything like that. I think some of the greatest people I admire are monks, but I think there's a reason why Sri Krishna was a householder, why Ramji was a householder, Raja Janak was a householder. We have that rich history, but yeah, that's
and we
very
feel like we have the choice that we're, that we may making the choice to be
yeah,
a householder, but it's chosen for us. But
yeah, yeah,
it's I can only imagine, like, now, especially with children, like that's going to be a brand new journey for you. So that's wonderful,
yes.
and I'm looking forward to what comes out of that for you. But I love Ramakrishna's teaching, like, to see everybody in your life as a form of God. I
Mhm.
really resonated with that teaching. It's like, to all your relationships, handling them with care, as almost like that is God in form. That has,
Mm.
and it's difficult sometimes, to see that, but
Yeah.
to see it in that way. But the more we do that, the more we can, like, our thought, speech, and action is graceful, the more harmonious it is, I found.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially with your closest relationships, sometimes when like, especially in the challenging moments, that advice really, really helps.
Yeah, you constantly have to kind of swallow your pride. You can't be as selfish as you probably would do if you were alone. There's lots of things that it challenges the very, kind of basic things that we look to transcend in spirituality. I think marriage addresses those things,
Absolutely.
or relationships.
I found that, like, marriage, it it points out and makes you aware of where you are still divisive. So it's like two people coming together, and through your experiences together, all where you are still separate arises, and it's like, working through that, you become more and more one. That's what I felt in the past few years with my wife and I. It's like, the challenges that do come up, when they come up, it's like, why is this happening? This sucks. It takes so much energy to work through it properly. But the more you do, it's like, the more you become one, you know? And so
Yeah.
that itself is a union of its own. So it's like, outwardly, yeah, you're becoming one. And inwardly, you are transcending personal identity. It's so
Yes.
beautiful.
That's very true. Like, even to see the oneness. When we got married, the person who conducted the marriage ceremony, he said one thing which was very, and it stayed with me. He said that do not see your in-laws as your in-laws. See them as your own parents, and experience that oneness. Because the moment you say, "This is my in-laws and these are my parents," once you have that difference, you can't have that closeness.
Yeah.
And from that, obviously, it's given on the day of marriage, you kind of want to practice that. And it's very true. Like, I see Manisha's parents as my own, and
Yes. Yes.
and I think, yeah, it takes away that separation that you would normally have
Yes.
if I didn't have
Absolutely.
these teachings in my life. And yeah, if we operate from oneness, wouldn't it be more? We'd live in a better society and better world. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's very,
But
very
us on the spiritual path, we are ourselves, like that beacon of light in a world full of darkness. Truly, I
yes.
believe that, and I share that with everybody who is seriously taking up spiritual practice. Like, it won't be easy, and it's like,
Mm.
you won't get away with the things that other people get away with. Meaning, like, other people can complain and moan and groan, and like, they don't know any better. But it's like, now you do. People may hurt you not knowing any better, but
Yeah.
you know better now. And the way is not revenge or retaliation, right? Like, you have to be the light which absorbs all that darkness and does not,
Mm.
propagate it.
Wow.
And as we do, we feel like, oh, our light will dim. But actually, the more we absorb darkness, like, the more our light grows. And it's like a transformation within yourself, but it's also like, you start to see the transformation in the people around you as well. You start
Yes.
you start to feel the transformation in your experience and how you
Yeah.
experience the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's. I really like that. The more darkness you take in, the more light engulfs you and surrounds you. That's very interesting. So you mentioned God. A lot of people tend to stay away from that word. I used to, but now I'm kind of getting okay with it. How are
Mhm.
you with that word? I know that Brahman cannot be translated as God, or even the self, the Atman, cannot be called God. Have you always been? Because I think I remember you saying, I could be wrong, that you're kind of agnostic or atheist. Or materialist, that was it. Materialist in your outlook. But are you okay now with the word God, and or have you always been okay with it? And
I love the
was
word now. I love the word now.
it?
All the time. And actually, sometimes, like if I use it in a talk and it maybe triggers someone, or maybe someone doesn't like it, I don't just let them get away with it. I actually ask them to investigate why you have such an attachment to the word, and like
Yeah.
you discover that, like, hey, because you're personifying it to be something that it's not. You're like making it into something that you have believed in the past. But
Yeah.
through these teachings, like our understanding of that, like becomes purified truly.
Yes.
And I know, so I love the word God. Before, yeah, when I said like before I came across these teachings, it's not that I was like atheist or anything, but I was more materialist, right? Like my entire focus was just in experience and what I can gain from experience.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a Hindu household, so being all around pujas and all like prayers and everything, and all these different gods for so many years. But because I never understood them, I never understood the essence of our religion. Like that's why I didn't care much for it. And
Yeah.
I just because I didn't understand it, I thought it was just like another philosophy, whatever. Um, but yeah, so I was never against the word God. But as I've matured in my meditation practice, not only have I started to understand the essence of the religion I was raised in, and many other religions as well, but also I've become much more comfortable with this word, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. 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 Yeah. No, I like that, and I felt that before. I didn't want to say it because I was dealing with my own. Because I think growing up in the West, like growing up in England, I felt like I went to a school that was like kind of Christian, and then you go to your Sunday satsang and they're talking about the formless. It's like they're on they're very contrasting philosophies on the appearance, and now you can see the underlying oneness. But
Are you
before,
Sikh or Hindu?
I go to the Nirankari satsang, which is an offshoot from Sikhism. But
Okay.
my grandparents, before they joined the movement, they were Hindu. At satsang, we were taught that God is nirakar, it's formless. Then at
Mhm.
school, you like the teacher's like bigging up a god that has a personification of some sort, and that brought a lot of conflict. But as I grew up and went to university, then I went through this whole atheist phase, and
Mhm.
then now it's like for a long time I've been refusing, and even when I started the podcast, I refused to say the word God. But I don't know, in the past like 6 7 months, I've just been finding myself at ease with it, and I don't know how it happened, but it just I'm like, yeah, I know what God, like the way I'm describing God, I know what it is, so I don't need to be uncomfortable with it,
Yeah,
you know.
totally.
But yes, what I do is when somebody says something about God, I do like to ask them how do they see God and get to know
Mhm.
where they're coming from. So I think that's probably changed a bit. Like I will probably
Yes.
challenge a bit more what people mean by that word, by that name, shall I say, and how they see it. But yeah, it's nice to know that you're good with it and you love it. I think that's a natural thing too. Do you feel that sometimes, especially with the path of self-inquiry, that it can become dry, right? And I think when you use words like God or say Brahman or the Ishtevta of any sort or Ishvara, do you feel like it brings a closeness which you won't get with just the nirgun aspect, with the
Mhm.
attributeless aspect?
Yeah, very good question. I felt that in my experience, um, because in the beginning I was only self inquiry meditation, right? That focus on that, and although that is still the main foundation, I would say, of my entire practice, I found that it sometimes can like become dry, right? And to solve that, I feel like it's just when you start hitting that wall in self-inquiry or in meditation, a natural devotion starts to spring up because you start to, as I said earlier, like you start to realize your own powerlessness.
Hmm.
And it's like a natural devotion starts pouring out, you know? And so then from that comes prayer, surrender, devotion to God.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's like, and I'm trying to remember the quote by Hanuman. Um, he said something along the lines of, "When I take myself to be a person,
Yeah.
I am your servant.
Yeah.
When I know myself to be the soul, I am a spark of your divine light." And I forget the third one, but he said,
I think when he's fully
yes, when
in
I
the
know myself as like the eternal, I am one with you, you know? So
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
we can play the role of like devotion to even an external god or like personifying God or into a figure. That's totally fine. Or worshiping the formless, right?
Yeah.
And also practice the meditation at the same time. And I think prayer, devotion, bhakti, it brings a certain softness in us, in our hearts,
Mm.
a certain love, great devotion. And it also then opens doors in meditation, which then only strengthens devotion. So it's like a feedback loop.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I like that. Yeah, and do you find that so the majority that join your academy, do they get introduced to the devotional aspects earlier on, or is it more when you felt they've matured, then you kind of introduce devotion, so it's in so they know what they're devoted to rather
Mhm.
than having an idea or concept of being devoted to something.
Yes. So we do a 10-week course, right? In week 4, we focus on surrender
Okay.
devotion. Until week 4, we do the fundamentals of self-inquiry and deepening our practice,
Uh-huh.
building that foundation. Week 4 is where we cover surrender, because like you start to notice also that surrender and devotion is so necessary. Let's talk about surrender, especially like if we are constantly attached to the person that I am and my future,
Hmm.
what must happen and what must not happen, that is what creates the restlessness in the mind.
Mm.
No matter how much meditation you do, until you start to surrender, your mind will remain restless because it is under the impression that I am a someone that needs to secure my future and this must happen and this cannot happen. That is the source of restlessness.
Mm.
Once we start to surrender, once we start to become open to however the future may arise, as being open to whatever may come, whatever may go. Once that acceptance and surrender starts to brew within us, then whatever the mind says, like, how can it hook into you? It needs someone to hook into. It needs someone to be deeply invested in some future to hook
Mm.
into. So surrender naturally dissolves the restlessness of mind, which makes inquiry easier. The
Mm.
more inquiry meditation becomes simpler and deeper, the stronger and more established we become in surrender. So they're like two sides of the same thing. So yeah, week 4 and then week 9 as well. So we do 1 week on surrender first, and then we once again get back into the principles of inquiry. Then later on, once again, this theme comes in, because truly they both have to be practiced together. You cannot just just do that, and perhaps you can, but the sort of the approach that I've experienced and what I share is like we do them together.
Yeah, very beautiful. And Sri Krishna more or less says the same thing, that Gyan and Bhakti are,
Mhm.
you know, two wings of a bird. You need them both in order to
Mhm.
progress. I do feel like when you have that Gyan, the knowledge of the self, only then is your devotion then pointed towards something.
Yes. Yes.
Otherwise, I say that when you're devoted without Gyan, it can become blind faith. It can become delusional.
Exactly. Exactly.
It can have no focus point, and there is no stabilization going on that's required. So yeah, it's very. I love that you have that incorporated in your course. I mean, that's
And
beautiful.
Gita was one of the main texts that helped me develop that also. And when I first read the Gita, I mean, that was a long time ago, but like when I revisited it after I came across these teachings, I thought it was I had remembered it to be just a text on karma yoga, just like selfless action. But then when I read it, like it covers all paths,
Yes,
and it
yes,
was so beautiful to see how like the way that it proposes to live. It's like it's a culmination of all paths, and so that's where I really saw the importance of it as well. And it just
beautiful.
felt like a natural transition into it.
Beautiful. We getting to the end of the podcast. It has not felt like an hour. I really could speak to you
Yeah,
for a longer time, and um,
yeah, it's very fun.
but as we're wrapping up, obviously there's going to be a lot of my listeners. They're going to be coming across you for the first time. And I actually would say, do check out. I want them to check out your academy, and I would love for them to try it out. And because there's a lot I feel they can grasp from it. So yeah, I'm not. By the way, this is not a paid sponsorship, but like, but yeah, I do genuinely feel from what you've described today, and even what I've listened to you on YouTube, I feel like the academy would be a good step for a lot of people, for a lot of my listeners. But wrapping up, um, it, as someone starting the spiritual path that's gone onto YouTube and there's, numerous things they can listen to, what's the one advice would you give them to bring focus and clarity as they seek out spiritual liberation?
Hmm. Yeah, I would say that again, self honesty and resonance. Like,
Mm,
pay very close attention to your resonance. So let's first talk about resonance. You are meant to be practicing what you resonate with the most and what feels most natural to you. That doesn't mean that it won't be challenging, but the desire to practice that will be there, and the energy to move through through those obstacles will be there. I feel like we should always keep a teaching around us. And usually it's like that there's a teaching in our experience which we don't yet grasp, that we're like sort of trying to claw up at.
mhm,
There's a teaching that does make sense. The teaching that does make sense, we have to do our best to practice it. We have to do our best to absolutely embody it in our daily life. And I actually recommend having almost like of course you want to discern if the teaching is it feels true or not.
mhm,
But if it feels true, you trust that teaching more than you trust your own mind's doubts. If it doesn't feel true, throw it in the trash and run away from it. Forget it.
mhm,
But if it feels true, then you trust that feeling more than you trust your own mind's doubts and resistances and fears about it. Have nothing to lose. I always say, like, go all in on the teaching that feels true.
mhm,
Like, go in the direction that feels truthful, because that truly is life leading you. That is grace in action. And so, as we do that, as we follow the path of our resonance, as we embody the teaching that we do understand, we begin to naturally like be pulled upwards into that which we previously didn't understand, and but
mhm,
now it just starts to click out of nowhere, you know. And throughout this path, just be honest, because the mind does lie to you. The mind says all these things, and the mind is very scattered in its priorities. The mind wants truth, but it also wants this pleasure and that pleasure. We must do our best on this path to refine our priorities. What is it that we truly want? If you do find that, like, oh no, but you still prioritize this pleasure and that pleasure, then okay, go have that pleasure. But while you are doing it, don't just do it blindly. Don't just do it unconsciously.
mhm,
Chase experience if you want, chase money if you want. But as you are going about it, be honest with yourself and see if it worked.
mhm,
See if the desires that you were so attached to, when they've become fulfilled, did it make you happy? Did it dissolve your restless mind? Did it stop making you fearful or something like that, and
mhm,
like learn from that. So
mhm,
follow the path of resonance, uh, go wherever this life takes you, and just be honest, observe. And from that just naturally comes spiritual growth. Our desires themselves become more and more refined, purified, until the main thing we want is now just truth. And everything else is like, of course, personally, it's important that I get this or that, but like, it's superficial. it's not really ultimately a condition on my happiness.
Hmm.
Personally, we'll always be moving towards something, this and that, but it's like that doesn't hold the utmost importance anymore, the utmost priority. If anything,
Beautiful.
that is like the path through which we uncover these spiritual truths.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you, Sunny, for one, being gracious with your time and for guiding us and teaching us a lot in this episode. I feel like I've grasped a lot of things, a lot of perspectives which I haven't thought about before. And I hope that the listeners also grasp the teachings and they understand that the practice can be easier when you have that honesty and that you resonate with it as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for blessing
Thank you very
us.
much
And
for having me.
we
Pleasure
uh,
speaking to you.
oh, thank you. And we have to have you on again. I think I had a few more questions, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask them for the next time because
Yeah, next time would be great.
it's yeah, a lot of people need to know your message, and it's worth. And I think these conversations, they kind of bring a personality out, which I think sometimes videos don't give, or they show the person behind the majestic teachings and
Mhm.
words. Thank you. It was a pleasure, and I hope to see you again on the
Yeah,
podcast.
absolutely. It was a pleasure being on here. Thank you for having me, and I'm wishing you the best of luck as well with your new endeavor with your newborn.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.